Oh, I like whoever just did that. We want to go ahead and get seated.
There's no light for on.
Okay.
I feel like we got some at least entertainment. Yes. Okay, pickleball. Good. Curling. I love it. Is this you curling? Is it really? That's the championship match. Is it really? Oh yeah. Yeah. Vice skip. What are you doing?
I don't know. We will go ahead and call this joint meeting together. For the record, it is Wednesday, April 6th at 6:05 p.m. We're going to be operating under two separate formats this evening. One will be a regular city council meeting, so we will go ahead and take roll call attendance, and then I'll turn to the chair this evening. It will be a quorum for the West Ada School District, so it will be under a different format. But we'll just try to, when it's time to ask questions, we'll figure it out. But for now, we'll go through me, and after that, maybe we'll be more a little free-flowing. But with that, I'll ask the clerk to call the roll.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Councilman Byrne?
Here.
Councilwoman Perot?
Here.
Councilman Vorton?
Here.
Councilman Hoagland?
Here.
Mayor Simison?
Here. Next item is the adoption of the agenda.
Mr. Mayor,
Councilman Hoagland.
Mr. Mayor, we have a much shorter agenda tonight than we did last night, which I'm very thankful for. But we have a topic, future planning for growth-related needs, and under that, we're going to have a presentation on the West Ada School District Facility Plan, and then have a council board discussion following that, and then adjournment. So with that, Mr. Mayor, I move adoption of the agenda as presented.
Second.
I have a motion and a second to adopt the agenda as presented. Is there any discussion? If not, all in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed, nay. The ayes have it, and the agenda is adopted.
Mr. Mayor,
Councilman Burke.
do we have to take roll call attendance for Ada School District?
We do not. So what I thought we'd do before we get to hear from Marcy is if we wouldn't mind just going through and doing some introductions, as not everyone had an opportunity to spend a few minutes with each member beforehand, and maybe just name how long you've been serving and whatever you'd like to share about your background professionally, because I think that always provides a little bit of good information from that standpoint. Renee, would you like to start?
Perfect. Thanks. I'm Renee Ozuna, and I have been part of the West Ada School Board for probably 5.5 years now. I've seen a lot of change in my time. I'm really thankful to be able to serve for our students and our community. I have 3 boys. They've gone through the West Ada School District. I have one that's still there. I also have a grandson in West Ada and a granddaughter on the way up. But really thankful to be here. I think our partnership with the city has really improved over time, and I'm glad that we continue to be invited. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Really grateful to be here. I echo the same sentiments as Renee. Very grateful to be here. Very grateful for the partnership we have with West Ada. One of our strongest and most important partnerships we have in the Valley. So together we're stronger. There's no doubt about it. So my name's Treg Byrne, councilman. I don't know. You guys don't care, do you?
Small business owner.
Yeah, I mean, like, there's 4 people in the audience, so hopefully there's a lot more listening, so thank you.
Angie Redford. I'm brand new to the West Ada School Board, just 3 months in. I've been, thank you, learning a lot, and I'm excited to be here and collaborate with the City of Meridian. continue learning and growing in this position, and looking forward to contributing and serving the constituents of West Ada and Meridian. Thanks.
Joe Borton, 12-year council member, local kid, attorney here in town. 2 kids grew up through the West Ada School District, so that's it. Oh, and league champion in curling for 2021-22.
That is right.
All right, my name's Derek Bubb. I'll just start with a sincere appreciation for the council and their willingness to work with us, their willingness to listen. There's obviously challenges with growth, but I'm going to just tell you that the reason that we're growing is because of this partnership and because we continue to work together and provide a great city, provide great schools, and so I would thank you for that. This is my 5th year in West Ada School District, and just finish it up feels like my 15th year as superintendent, but my first year as superintendent, so thank you.
I always like to let other people do all the niceties or the hard work in a lot of these things. Joe Borton does a great job of, maybe tackling some difficult subjects, and Trey Burt does a great job of doing the introductions about the partnerships and the relationships, and that's what this is really about this evening, is building that relationship and partnership. And so we're happy to be here, but I've been serving as mayor now for 2 years and 3 months, 4 months, depending on what day it is, and signed in from that standpoint, but been with the city for going on 16 years in some capacity or another, and have enjoyed my working relationship with a wide variety of board members, superintendents, and staff over the years. It's always been a wonderful part of the job.
I'm Brad Hoagland. I currently serve as council president, and I'm in 2 years into this term after a break of, 8 years. I was appointed in 08, one in 09, and served 4 years, and then had changed employment and I took a break from council work because it didn't have the flexibility in the jobs. I'm a graduate of Meridian High School, and quite the iteration of schools at the time of, there's constant change, even back then, when the dinosaurs roamed the earth. It was going to Meridian Elementary, and then you go off to middle school, and Lowell Scott was brand new, and we're out there out in the country fields, and Norm's Bar was across Eagle Road, and they were very concerned about us being corrupted by that. And then coming to the 9th grade, where Coal Valley was 9th grade's option only for, I think, about 3 years. So we got to take advantage of that. Meridian Middle School was our high school for our sophomore year. And I don't think any part of that building, except for the sophomore hall, we called it, still exists. Everything else is either burned down or been remodeled. So, and then of course Meridian High School, and to see the changes that occur. And of course my kids spent 4 years back in Washington D.C., came back, and my kids started elementary school in West Ada, and now I've got twin granddaughters, first graders at Willow Creek. So now it's the 3rd generation, if you will, in West Ada. And I want to say it's a good education. And that's, I know you're all committed to that, and I appreciate that very much, because the education, the skills that we need this day, it has changed immensely. And to keep up with that, and to hire good people to make sure we've got our young people educated to think and to learn is an awesome responsibility. And I have to say, I'm proud that both of my kids, son and daughter, are both teachers now. So it's something that, and my father was a teacher, my mom was administrative assistant in West Ada, as well as other places, what we called Meridian School District back then, because Star and Eagle and everybody there, that was so tiny, it didn't matter. We were the big dogs, but I just appreciate, as I talked to some of you about, this is a partnership. We have different roles and responsibilities, but the fact that there's overlap in some of the areas that impact each other, and we want to have this relationship that we can talk to each other, work through things, and help each other out, because this is our community, our residents. It's people that we want to see grow and thrive in their lives, and especially our young people. So it's a big responsibility, and the more we can work together and do that well, everyone's better off for it. So thank you for being here and beginning that journey.
Good evening. My name is Jessica Perot. This is going into my third year on council, and I had the privilege of serving 3 years on the Planning and Zoning Commission before that. I am an associate real estate broker, have owned my real estate business for about 12 years and seen our market go through incredible change in that time, up and down. Hopefully not down again anytime soon. But intimately aware of the growth that we've mentioned. And I just want to say welcome to the new trustees. You all are heroes in my mind and exceptionally brave. And during the pandemic, when people would ask what it meant to be a public servant, I would say, well, the real heroes are the school board members. I feel like that we got it a little easier in some ways. But anyhow, yes, very happy to be here this evening to learn from you all and to work together to help figure out what direction that we'll be able to go to serve our young people in our community. So thank you very much for coming and joining us.
All right, I am Lori Frazier. I've been on the board for about 3 months, and I'm getting to serve as vice chair right now. And tonight, our chair, Rusty Kofeld, is with his new granddaughter in California with his family, which we congratulate him. He said he might try and listen a little bit tonight, so hello, Rusty. Really excited to be here and grateful, like everybody said, for the opportunity to work together, and just can't thank you enough for taking the time and reaching out and really spending, I think, the collaborative effort that this can really bring, and to show the community how interested we are in working together to be successful and make sure that the number one thing happens, which is our kids get put first and we put them in the best possible situation, education-wise. I am a wife and a mother to 2 wonderful kids. I have a daughter in college and a son that's a sophomore in high school right now at Owahi, and he also said he'd watch, so hello, Tyler. Anyway, so thank you very much.
Well, thank you. Luckily, we didn't say our hometown because I think we could have had a Pocatello reunion here between the council and West Ada, but we'll bypass that. So thank you, everyone, for indulging that, and hopefully you learned a little bit about those that you'll be serving with in various capacities and having conversations. And obviously, growth has been the conversation. It's been on several newspaper articles. It's been the focus of several of our conversations here at the city, as well as at the district. And now we're going to hear from Marcy and Jonathan to get an update on the future planning for growth-related needs, which is an overview of the proposed West Ada facility plan.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of the council, board, trustees, Dr. Bub. That's a mouthful, so we're gonna do that once and then we're just gonna start moving. Okay, so I just wanted to begin by saying good evening and thank you for the opportunity to come and share with you tonight. I wanted to take a few minutes and kind of outline what it is we're gonna see, what it is we're gonna cover this evening. If you remember the last time we came, we talked a lot about the data we were tracking, how we were gathering that data, and what we were gonna be looking to use it for. So now we're looking at step 2. What you're gonna see tonight is you're gonna see us dig a little deeper into the data. We're gonna talk a little bit about how we use that data for planning and what it looks like. Full transparency, we're really excited. This is the first time we've been able to unveil this data with our board and with you as the city council. So we're excited to be able to share some of these things. So just know there's other work we're going to continue to do as a board and as a district to continue to work. There'll be follow-up work sessions as we continue to outline a lot of this data and as we continue to look at the impact. So you're going to see a lot tonight. You're going to see some information that walks through school sites. You're going to see some information that talks about dollar amounts for us to build. You're going to see some information that's all projections. Again, all information that we're going to both take and share with you tonight, and then work with our board in the future and with our stakeholders to continue to plan for the district in the future. So the agenda tonight, we're going to spend some time going through our facility analysis. You're going to see a regional and school level analysis. We're going to talk about some projected needs, a little bit about school site planning. You're going to get to see some pictures of what it may look like on a site the district owns if we were to put a school there. You're going to see kind of what a tentative timeline may look like, and then it wouldn't be a presentation, at least that I put together or had any part in, without some version of financial information at the end. And so with that, Marcy is going to come up and share a little bit about planning. Thank you.
situated here. Good evening. Thank you for having us and having me back. All right, so we're going to first talk about what are the anticipated needs of the district. Okay, the regional analysis. I'm going to read this. You can follow along, but this is, I think, important. So the following analysis is presented by regions identified by school attendance areas. The maps and charts you will see show the subject areas or regions with calculations of the number of students and estimates of the number of schools that might need to be built over the next 10 years as the approved housing projects are completed. The tables that follow will show the number of dwelling units and projected students in regional attendance areas broken down by expected year of completion. This data alerts the district to the impact of the growth in the area and reinforces the need for new facility after mitigating measures have been utilized. So you're going to see, again, you're going to see different regions. And first I want to explain a little bit about what you're going to see on the following slides. So you can see that the colors are going to represent attendance areas. So in this, you can see the attendance areas. We're talking about Star, Eagle Hills, Seven Oaks, and Eagle. You can also see the school sites where the schools are located within that attendance area. Those blue polygons are the future developments. And you will also see future school sites that the district has. So that is going to be the pattern that we see in each of those regions. Okay, we're going to start off with elementary schools. And we will start off with the North region. And that's really just because I think from the top down. So we'll start off from the North region. Okay. In the North region, we're looking at Star, Eagle, Eagle Hills, and Seven Oaks Elementary Schools. Our elementary student generation rate in this region is 0.14 for the single family and 0.07 for multifamily. The table at the bottom shows the development statuses. We talked about that last time. The projected timeline of those statuses, the number of single family and multifamily lots in each of those statuses. I don't even know if statuses is a word. Probably going to be corrected later. The total number of students projected from those developments. And in these elementary slides, the tables will show the number of elementary students projected in the region. Then, as you can see, we forecast those projected elementary students in the year we're estimating the homes to be completed and occupied. In the North region, you can see that there are over 10,000 single-family lots in process, projected to bring in 68 students by next year, 160 in 2 years, another 350 in the third year, and so on, as you can see on that table. So as we move on to the next slide, note that the projected number of elementary students circled here is 1,493. The next slide is going to show you in which attendance area these students live. This table shows the number of approved and pending single-family and multifamily lots or units in each respective attendance area, the actual elementary student generation rate for each attendance area, and the projected future number of elementary students for that attendance area. Here you can see that total number of projected students that matches the previous slide. Remember, these students are expected over the space of 10 years as the developments are completed. Star Elementary, you can see, is projecting 540 additional students. Eagle Elementary is projecting 313, and so on, totaling that 1,493 future elementary students in this region. Based on the current capacity of these schools, as well as any available capacity at Galileo, because that's in that region as well, we have room for approximately 648 of these future students. To accommodate all the future elementary students in this area, we will need to build 1.21 schools. This is based on the assumption that the school we build will have a capacity of 750, We currently own 2 sites in Star. However, one of those locations will not be able to accommodate a school of that size, so we will really be rounding that number up to 2 schools needed. Okay, this is a fast-growing region in our district, primarily in Star and West Eagle, as you can see on the map. A new elementary school needs to be the highest priority in this region. The information to the right of your screen is color-coded and corresponds to the same colored attendance area. The building capacity number is calculated to be a functional capacity for the design of the school, which takes into consideration school programs, fluctuations in student enrollment, and changes in class sizes. As a rule, the functional design capacity is considered to be 90% utilization of the school for elementary schools. Considering this, Star Elementary could see signs of overcrowding during the 2022-23 school year. Eagle and Seven Oaks Elementary are estimated to reach capacity in 3 years, and Eagle Hills in 6 years. This is if we don't build any schools. You might look at Eagle Hills Elementary and ask, why are you estimating Eagle Hills reaching capacity in 6 years and Eagle Elementary in 3 years when there's much less available capacity at Eagle Hills than there is at Eagle? This estimate is based on the timeline of the building development. So for example, in Eagle Hills elementary attendance area, there are currently 159 single-family homes that have reached that status of develop, right? That means that they have their parcels assigned, they're ready to build, or if they haven't already broken ground, they're ready to do so. By contrast, Eagle Elementary has 559 single-family homes and 220 multifamily units in that same status. Essentially, the homes in Eagle Elementary attendance area are going to be completed before the homes in the Eagle Hills elementary attendance area. Moving on to the West region. In what I'm calling the West region for the purposes of this presentation, we're looking at Pleasant View, Ponderosa, and Chaparral elementary schools. Our elementary student generation rate in this region is 0.18 for single family and 0.1 for multifamily, which is a little bit higher than the North region. There are 5,000 single-family lots, single-family homes in process, projected to bring in 1,219 elementary students. We project our enrollment in this region will increase by 97 students next year, 171 in 2 years, another 257 in 3 years, and so on. The student generation rate in this area will also likely increase over the years as it becomes more and more populated. There's still a considerable amount of room in this area to build on. The growth from the Pleasant View Elementary attendance area will just keep continuing to increase as more of those developments are completed. Pleasant View Elementary is projecting 978 additional students from the current housing developments in process. Based on the current capacity of these schools, as well as any available capacity at Barbara Morgan and Chief Joseph Elementary Schools, we have room for approximately 495 of these future students. It might be considered possible to manage the enrollment by adjusting attendance areas, but this would be a temporary fix for this area, and it would cause children to be shuffled multiple times within their elementary years, which we don't like to do. Fortunately, the district owns 2 school sites in the Pleasant View Elementary attendance area, one north of Owahi High School and another north of Ustick and west of Black Cat, which you can see on this slide circled. Pleasant View Elementary is expected to reach capacity in 2 years. Adding an elementary school on at least one of our school sites will be necessary as the population in this area of the district continues to grow. All right, moving on to the South region, specifically the South Meridian region. We'll talk about some Eastern region in a minute. In the South region, we're looking at Mary McPherson, Pepper Ridge, Sienna, Hillsdale, and the southern portions of Chaparral and Peregrine, where they're south of the freeway. Our elementary student generation rate in this region is 0.21 for single family and 0.09 for multi-family. So the single family homes generate 50% more elementary students in this region than in the North region. There are over 5,000 single-family and over 1,000 multifamily homes in process, projected to bring 78 students the first year, 173 in 2 years, and another 326 in 3 years, and so on. This area, like I said, is just mainly focusing on the Meridian growth, but there is also housing developments annexed into CUNA in this southwest corner of the region. Here you can see that we are projecting 658 future elementary students in the Mary McPherson Elementary attendance area and 418 in the Hillsdale Elementary attendance area. As we look closer at the housing developments, we see that the houses in the Hillsdale Elementary attendance area are closer to being completed than the houses in the Mary McPherson Elementary attendance area. Again, adjusting these attendance areas would also be very challenging. Considering the available capacity, the district will need another school in this area to accommodate the future elementary students. Because Hillsdale is quickly reaching capacity and has more developments being completed, the school is expected to reach capacity in 1 to 2 years. Mary McPherson Elementary will also see their enrollment increase as the developments in that attendance area are completed. And without another school in South Meridian, they are also estimated to reach capacity in 3 years. We do own 2 elementary sites in this region of growth. When we build a new school in the south, I believe it will need to be strategically located so the attendance areas of both Mary McPherson and Hillsdale Elementary can be reduced. Whether that's on one of our existing sites, such as Blue Valley, or a different location has not been determined yet. The southeast region, I didn't want to lump these in with the South Meridian. This is just obviously a little bit to the east of that region. These elementary schools are able to accommodate the growth that we are going to be seeing in this area. And the east region for this presentation is just the rest of the schools. The multifamily student generation rate in this area is much higher than the rest of the district at 0.21. Schools in the east, such as McMillan, Frontier, and Joplin, they have excess capacity with little to no growth, and Prospect, Discovery, River Valley, Paramount, Meridian, they're not experiencing high growth right now. This table shows not only the future elementary students in each of these attendance areas, but also the available seats in each of the schools, just showing that each of the schools have the capacity to accommodate the projected future growth in their areas. There's a lot. We're going to go on to middle schools. All right. Not as many regions. So this table here on this slide is just representing the entire district and the timeline for future middle school student projections. The map shows the middle school attendance areas as well as the location of the future developments, and in relation to those attendance areas, we're projecting 2,702 future middle school students from the residential growth. And next we'll take a look at those students by attendance area. So once again, this table shows by attendance area the developments, both single and multifamily, the area's specific student generation, and the projected number of future middle school students according to that student generation rate. Again, I want to point out that the future middle school students are projected over a span of 10 years. Not surprisingly, the largest number of future middle school students will come from what is currently zoned as the Star Middle School attendance area. Within that area, there are 2 areas that are experiencing high growth, Star and North Meridian, which you'll be able to see more clearly on the next slide. The district currently owns 2 sites designated as middle school sites, one in North Meridian and one in South Meridian. Here's that good visual representation showing the residential growth in the Star Middle School attendance area, again, over the span of 10 years. Much of the middle school enrollment projection in the north half of the district will depend on the progress of the developments and future developments and the rate of continued growth specifically in Star. Both Star and Eagle Middle School are currently below capacity, but you see in the Star attendance area, there are 1,228 future middle school students projected. To manage student enrollment, the district must look ahead to the time a new middle school will be needed. The forecast shows the need for a new middle school in this region is 4 to 6 years. You can see the middle school site that we have, that we own, circled on the map, which is near all of that northwest Meridian growth. In the south half of the district, both Victory Middle and Lake Hazel Middle are close to their capacity numbers. We've spoken about capacity before, and we'll likely speak about capacity again. Regarding these two schools, Lake Hazel Middle School utilizes every classroom, including 8 portables. None of their teachers share a classroom during their prep periods. Victory Middle School also utilizes every classroom. They have no portable classrooms, and none of their teachers share a classroom during teacher prep periods. As a rule, at the middle school level, the school is operating at 85% utilization when that capacity number is reached. Please look at the projected students for each of these attendance areas. Lake Hazel has 153, and Victory Middle has 550. While another school in this region will be necessary, the timeline for adding a middle school in this region is going to depend on the rate of growth in this area. Can Lake Hazel Middle School accommodate another 153 students? Yes. What other growth will be happening in the Southeast region, and what will that timing be? We'll see. The next slide is going to show you the projected rate of growth, but it's going to focus on Lake Hazel Middle School, Victory Middle School, and comparing that with Star Middle School, because those are the schools that are forecasting significant growth beyond their capacity. Here is that comparison meant to show you the rates of growth we are forecasting for the next 10 years. This is an important factor in planning for the next middle school. You can see the single-family lots that are in each of these regions. Star Middle School over 12,000, Victory Middle School over 4,000, Lake Hazel Middle School at 1,350. Total middle school students, respectively, again, Star Middle School over 1,200, Victory Middle School 550, and as I said, Lake Hazel Middle School at 153. And those differences by year: 98 in Star, 38 in Victory Middle School attendance area, 15 in Lake Hazel Middle School attendance area. I think it's also important to note the enrollment change that's happened just in this current year. You can see that Victory is kind of held steady. Star has a net, these are net changes, has a net gain of 23 students, and Lake Hazel Middle has a net decrease of 16 students. And these are also important factors when we consider the timeline for the next middle school. Okay, high school, here we go. Are you okay? You need to stretch your eyeballs? Okay, here we go. Okay, this table also represents the entire district and the timeline for future high school student projections. Similarly, the map shows the high school attendance area as well as the locations of the future developments in relation to those attendance areas. As with the middle school table, this high school table shows by attendance area the developments, both single and multifamily, the area's specific student generation rate, and the projected number of future high school students according to that area's student generation rate, the future high school students, again, over a 10-year time span. Assuming the student generation rates remain the same, the number of high school students projected to increase from growth in just Owahi high school attendance area is 1,414. Eagle High School is projected to grow by 1,052 students. Mountain View is projected to increase by 538 students. We've already talked about the immense growth in this north half of the district. Owahi High School is projecting to start the 22-23 school year at just over 1,800 students. The targeted utilization at the high school level represents scheduled use of core subject classrooms for 3 periods out of a 4-period day, or 75% of the time available for use. The remaining 25% of the time being used for teacher prep, tutoring, etc. In other words, when enrollment at high school reaches its building capacity number, it's functioning at approximately 75% utilization. So while these 3 schools are likely going to start next year at capacity, there is still that 25% that is not being utilized. Taking that into consideration, as well as the timeline for the developments, the need for a new high school in this area is forecasted for 2027. In this slide, I'm just wanting to focus on Centennial and Meridian High School. When you consider that 75% utilization rule for capacity, both have space to accommodate the future growth in their attendance areas. And the school site that we own for a high school in this region is circled below. This slide is just dedicated to the Mountain View High School attendance area. The projected high school students from future developments already in process in this region, as I said, is 538. For this map, I've included in pink some future developments that are in those pre-planning stages that will add significantly to residences in this area. But the completion of these homes won't be within our 10-year time period. So we're monitoring this area very closely, and should that enrollment grow faster than anticipated, the district may look at boundary adjustments or the addition of portables to mitigate overcrowding until there are enough high school students to open another high school here. So we've gone through the analysis, and now I will just summarize the need that's been identified. We've identified the need and are planning for 4 additional elementary schools, 2 in the north, specifically in or near Star, 1 in the west, specifically within our existing attendance area for Pleasant View Elementary, and where we own 2 school sites, and 1 in South Meridian. We've identified the need for 2 middle schools, 1 in the north, 1 in the south. We've identified the need for 1 high school in the north and another eventual high school in the south. And I believe I'll turn the time over to Jonathan to talk about school site plans.
Thank you again. So I just wanted to take a minute. I feel like sharing a picture of what it looks like to then take our land, take the sites we have, and put the building on it. What does it kind of look like? Just giving you an opportunity. I don't know about you. I'm pretty visual. When I see a plot of land, I don't necessarily know what that means. What's it going to look like? How will the school fit? So we asked our architects to do just some help us out. Take a look at the sites we have. Where could we set a building down? What would the setup look like? So we're not going to spend a whole lot of time walking through this other than just kind of give you a glimpse of what it may look like if we chose to build on these. Specifically, what was referenced, the site we have in Star is a little smaller than we would normally build upon. So it's roughly sitting at 7 acres. Usually we shoot for around 10 acres for an elementary school site. So you're going to see a facility that's a little smaller capacity. But again, just kind of giving you a picture of what a 350 student school might look like if we were to put it on that site. This is another elementary school in North Meridian. This will be near the Owahi area. This one, you'll have to use a little bit of your imagination. We had to pop it on the site based on the picture, so obviously we'll continue to do some work with that, but that would give you an opportunity to kind of see how the layout and development may look. And then again, here's the site we specifically have associated in Star with the ability to put an elementary school. In South Meridian, this is a site we have developed and already have done some prep work on. Many of you may have heard of Blue Valley Elementary School. That's been referenced previously, so this is just a picture of how it would look on that site specifically. Projected capacity for a school of that size is around 750. Our middle school site in North Meridian, again, just giving you a little picture of how that may look on the district and the land that we have that is available. Typical enrollment capacity for that is shooting around 1,000. And then again on the middle school site in South Meridian as well. And then we have a little color-coded picture of how Star may look at on the site there. So you can kind of get a picture of what the potential next high school may look like. And then we just wanted to share a little bit more about a couple other things the district has the potential of looking into as we continue to expand programs. I'm always excited to talk about CTE. So we just shared that the potential in the future is for us to look at a CTE center as well. These are some pictures actually of ones different than on our district. These are across the state. Kind of gives you a little glimpse for what a CTE center may look like outside of the city of Meridian and the West Ada School District. And then just for your benefit, a little bit about what are the CTE programs that you may see in a building and what we would look to continue to grow with our CTE programs. And then the tentative timeline, this will align with those potential identified needs that we had throughout. It kind of gives you a picture of what the 10 years, again, may look like for the district. Again, there's still lots of work that we'll be doing to identify that need and assess our stakeholders and continue to evaluate needs. We'll continue it just as so you kind of know what next steps are for data with us. Really projections continue all year, but they'll start really continuing to work as we look at kindergarten registration right now. Then we'll look at summer enrollment fairs that we'll continue to do, and then we'll start to roll into fall registration. And that'll give us some ways to start to align our projections with what we're actually seeing from student enrollment that happens next year. And like I said, it would not be a presentation without some version of finance and dollar bills. I feel like that's the accountant in me. I just need to do that. So you have an opportunity to see, I tried my best to look at what projected costs are now and what it may cost to build a school. I know you're starting to see some numbers there. What it costs to build a high school potentially 10 years from now. And so what I tried to capture was my best estimates and what we've heard from stakeholders and what we've heard from people of costing of, hey, what is it costing today? And what do we think it's going to cost as much as 10 years from now? So if you knew the answer to that 10 years from now, I would love it. You and I should be working together on more than just dollar amounts in school facility planning. But again, hopefully it kind of just gives you a little context and picture for what it costs to build a school at the size that we currently do and what our potential projections of what that may look like as we look out even as far as 2034. So next steps, there are, this is usually specific to the bond, but if the district decided to go out and do a bond, there's a whole bond committee process that we walk through as part of the district, and so that'll happen after board discussions. There's opportunities for stakeholders to get involved in that. We'll continue to look at enrollment projections, just like we always do, but we'll start rolling that data in from fall and starting to pull that data in and start to evaluate where our projections and where we're aligning, where we have continued questions, and then as always, we'll from the finance side, continue the cost refinement and projections as we look at facility needs. And with that, we can stand for questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Jonathan and Marcy, very much for that insightful look into this current moment in time, because that's all this is. Doesn't take into account what happens tomorrow when someone walks through any city's door. We know that. So, council, trustees, questions?
Mr. Mayor,
Councilman
real
Hoagland.
quick question, Jonathan, just to give us context. What was the cost for Owahi High School, the final construction cost?
Mr. Mayor, members of the committee, we'll just do that. That sounds good. It was hovering right around 70 million. Yeah. We still have some final costs we're working through. And then, of course, as always, site development costs will really throw that number off, from the facility side as well.
Mr. Mayor,
Councilman Perot.
fellow council members know I'll come with a lot of questions. Two specifically. First, I wanted to possibly go back to that slide that showed the timeline. Marcy had mentioned that there would need to be, for example, a high school in North Meridian in 2027 based on current enrollment and numbers and projections. But if I understand this timeline correctly, that's 2027 is when the district would begin to start working on bonding and discussions. So is this obviously what's estimated for 2024 would have to be in play now to be completed by 2024. So I'm curious how the timeline that's on here, is that completion of a school, or is that when the process, when the district would start considering the beginning of the process? Because from the time you start to bond to the time of construction completion, you're probably 3 to 4 years?
And Councilmember, thank you. So some of this is built, when you look at building a school in 2024, there are, if we look to identify, if it's determined that the need exists, there are some things the district can do to plan in advance to shorten that timeline. So we may be able to look at a expeditious timeline that would perhaps maybe take 15 to 16 months if we are ready to bid. And so those will be part of the things that we'll continue to evaluate when we look at enrollment, is whether we need to do some pre-planning in advance of that to be prepared should the bond pass to be able to move and start moving ground.
Another question, Mr. Mayor?
Keep going.
Oh, thank you. Okay. Okay, so it feels a little like, and I'm ignorant of what has transpired in the district until now, so it feels a little bit like this is all a brand-new thing that's being looked at and considered. Was there none of this planning done by prior administrators, or did what they lead? I know there's a lot of new folks involved, from trustees to leadership. Did the prior leadership just not leave anything to work with? I guess I'm trying to get a feeling for what past planning has been done and how that's different from the current planning. And then I have one more question about the sizes of the geography, the sizes of the schools themselves, the school sites themselves.
Thank you. I'll try to discuss the first question first. So the district did finish their last set of bond projects. I think what you're seeing is, and I hope you saw that even in the last presentation that we gave, is we're just continuing to refine the way in which we plan. And so we're continuing to get better at gathering data. So I would never want it to convey that there was necessarily a gap in planning. We did finish the first set of bond projects, and then I think associated with even the COVID impact, we saw a reduction in enrollment. And so that kind of allows you time to be able to manage your enrollment and look at what your next set of expectations are. And so I think that maybe delayed some processes a little bit, but while at the same time, I think what you're seeing is us gathering more data and really taking just even the development of Marcy's position is essentially the focus the district is taking on our development and planning.
Okay, thank you. So it's my understanding that the school sites, elementary you said was approximately 10 acres. I think middle is somewhere around 35, 40 acres?
30.
30, okay, and high school is 50, 60? There's many, especially metro areas in our country, where you have a high school on 10 acres or 15 acres. Help us understand why you couldn't take an existing site that's 60 acres, sell 30 of it, develop it, have those funds come in as income to the district, and use 30 acres to build a high school. I guess and this is again my ignorance, this is not a criticism or a judgment on the district. I don't understand the need for every high school to have its own athletic facilities, its own football field. I mean, there's lots of areas of our country where those are shared, and perhaps it's because the actual schools are closer to one another geographically, and it makes it easier for students to go back and forth. Or what am I kind of missing? Because the sticker shock of Owahi High School, we've heard a lot of talk about that, and when that came before us, I was the Planning and Zoning Commissioner, and I asked there was some interesting things I think that went on in general with the planning on that, but which predated a good majority of the people in this room. But I asked about why are we not building this to 2,500 students, because that's where Meridian is going to be built to at some point, or at that time that was the conversation, and that Rocky would potentially be expanded, or Mountain View would be expanded, or 2,200 to 2,500. And I was told that 1,800 students would get us at least 5 years, and it's gotten us way less than that. So I just didn't understand the thinking from the outset on why Owahi was built so small, and should we take $70 million and divide 1,800 into it and figure out what our per student cost is to build? Is that the metric that was used on these estimates here that you brought with you?
Council members, so I can tell you, that's a lot of questions. So I'll start to work backwards and I'll try to catch them all, and then you can tell me if I missed any. So the metric was really just taking a look at current costs of what it costs to build our most recent school, and then visiting with architects about what they're just seeing as cost planning in the marketplace right now, and then trying to look at, okay, what does that look like 2 and 4 and 6 and 8 and 10 years out? So it didn't necessarily go at a per student level. It went more of, this is what we know what it costs for us to build an elementary school at that level. Now, what do I think my best guess is of what it's going to be 6 or 8 years from now? And again, based on the current inflationary market, I tried to make an estimate. We'll use that term. It might not have been that scientific, actually, and try to come up with the numbers. As far as whether we would change the design and the look of our schools, obvious, and change the amount of acreage, I think there's a lot of folks that would go into that conversation. What does that look like from an athletic perspective? What does that look like from an academic perspective? Could we do that? I think those are all questions that we'll continue to look at, right? And so I think as far as the district, when they look at bond planning, I think we'll be able to evaluate that. We'll also be able to look at our peers and see what they have done across the state to build schools and say what works and what didn't. That'll be part of the process that I'm sure we'll go through. And so I think we'll be able to take the best things of those to be able to make an informed decision of whether we perhaps change the way we build, right? And so I think all of that will play into all of this larger conversation of what it looks like for facility planning for the district moving forward.
Anybody else have any questions?
Mr. Mayor?
Councilman Hoagland.
And it's always hard to figure something that you don't control. So I'm just trying to find out, how do you estimate or try to determine impact of our charter schools and private schools that go in? I mean, they do have an impact, but I know that's a hard to figure, but do you try to gauge some of that in your calculations or not?
Councilmember Hoagland, that's a great question. There are reporting for charter schools, so we can get some enrollment numbers from charter schools, but that's one of the challenges, really, that we're looking at our next step. What do we really want to learn next? And one of that is we want to identify what that capture rate is, what the students that are coming to West Ada, and what's the number of students that are not coming to West Ada, what's the impact of those students. So I think that's a great question, one that we're continuing to learn about, and we'll gather the data from where we can get it, and then we'll continue to learn and be able to capture that data from more places.
And I guess just as additional follow-up, there are some things we currently do. I would love to be able to tell you it's very scientific. It really isn't. I know folks at the Charter Commission, and I know a lot of charter schools, and so because that's where my past background. So I just make phone calls. I visit around with the charter schools. I talk with the directors. I say, tell me about how your enrollment's looking. Where are you looking to place schools, just to try to see if we can. It's not very coordinated, right? It's more of just me sitting down and saying, today as I do enrollment planning and as we look at the budget, I try to say, what are the impact of the charter schools in the area, and how do I think really around this time of year is going to affect our budget and what we anticipate enrollment to be.
Yeah, it certainly, Mr. Mayor and Jonathan, Marcy, you don't control it, and it's just so hard, but it does have an impact, so it's always tough trying to gauge those types of things when you don't control that process or the numbers gathering, so good luck on that. Yeah.
Well, but that was kind of where my question was going to go a little bit. Mary McPherson, their enrollment area obviously is big because of the Brighton development, but they're also bringing the charter school online. So that's really one of the questions I had was, did your numbers factor in any of that into that, or is that just separate? And yes, we know it will have an impact, but we just don't know when and to what impact, because you can't guarantee it's going to be. We can think it's going to be built and staffed and operational in 3 years, but.
Mr. Mayor, thanks for the question. We keep our eye on it. We know it's coming, but we're not putting all of our stock in it until we see it there. We just can't. We need to make sure that we go forward with it. Sorry about that. So yeah, so we're aware of it. We're watching it, but the calculations are not currently until we start seeing changes in our enrollment using those projections.
Okay. Any additional questions?
Mr. Mayor.
Councilwoman Pro.
I have a question about property taxes and bonds. Marcy's face. So we're obviously having a lot of conversations about property taxes and the burden that our community is feeling. And if bonds are added, there's that additional element of cost. And I feel like that it's difficult for the district. My understanding is, they're not permitted to necessarily advocate for the bonds themselves. They rely on members of the community to do that and to disseminate information that's accurate about the cost of paying back the bonds in relationship to the cost of taxes and whatnot. And so the legislature's really been, working to try to decrease some of the property tax costs to the public by limiting city budgets and a variety of things that they've been trying to do. Do you anticipate you're going to run into challenges getting bonds passed because there's already such a focus on reducing property taxes? And even though it's not a tax, it is paid in addition to those taxes and collected by the assessor and whatnot.
Members of the council, that's another great question. Oh man, I wish I would be able to answer that one. I can tell you that part of what we can do as a district is educate. All right, and so we do share the impact of the property taxes on our taxpayers. We do that annually as part of the L2 certification process, probably very similar to what all of you do. And so we try to share information on the impact, and obviously part of the planning that we do and in the future bond planning we do is trying to do our best to share what the impact would be of additional debt. I think you have seen some changes at the legislative level. It's usually around ballot language for us, specifically adding additional disclosures, trying to do the best to convey to taxpayers what the impact is. And so I think you'll start, I guess we'll see what that does associated with bond planning in the future. Some bonds passed in the past, so over March, they seem to do fairly well, but I think it's just something that we always gauge and continue to manage as we just continue to educate voters so that they can make informed decisions.
Any additional questions? All right. Well, thank you very much. Council trustees, the last thing we had was just any comments or questions that any of this information that you may want to discuss with each other. I know it's a little awkward as we're not around a round table. That makes it easier to sometimes talk back and forth or inquire with anything. But that if you have any questions or comments, we'll open up for that.
Mr. Mayor?
Councilman Hoagland.
We'll start with a money one. The impact fees, Meridian, we're able to collect impact fees for police, fire, parks, which is very beneficial because we want new growth to pay for the new parks, the new services that we need to provide. You don't have that ability as of yet. Is that something you're looking at trying to accomplish? And if so, how can we help you do that?
Yeah, Council, I would say this. I am a advocate for growth, paying for growth, and I think we need to look really hard at what that looks like as we move forward. I don't think that growth is going to be able to replace a bond. I think it can greatly lower a bond, and I think it's something that we need to work with our legislators and our policymakers to take a strong look at, and it impacts. Impact fees impact West Ada probably differently than other areas, but it's something that we need to look at in our next legislative session, definitely.
Mr. Mayor,
Councilman Borden.
to dovetail on that, I think this data that you presented is so fantastic and rich and detailed that I think it allows you to model impact fee scenarios, which we might not have been able to do before. But one of the greatest tools you might be able to develop is to illustrate the impact of your 10-year capital improvement plan, these projected costs, and create some scenarios of what impact fees, how they would mitigate these expenses, and what the bond ask would be without them, how they'd be reduced if they were in place, next year, and how that might impact the 2028 bond and the property tax savings to all residents. I think you could model a great story that shows how empowering impact fees for schools creates the property tax relief that everyone's talking about. I don't think we could do it accurately without the great data that you've developed. So now might be the time, and if there's anything the city can do to help that process, to create those tools to help tell the story, it tells a property tax relief story. So we're there, so that would be great to see.
Mr. Mayor?
Councilman Burt.
I know there's probably folks who are expecting me to get on my soapbox to start talking. I won't do that, but I will say this. I I don't think this is the appropriate time for me to go there, but I will say that I could not agree more with Dr. Bob and with Councilman Bort and others with regard to with impact fees. It's incredibly important as we go forward that new growth pays for growth and that the school district gets impact fees just like the city does, just like ACHD does. And if you were to take a poll right now, all right, if you were to go out on the street, we're all biased in this room, so we don't count, all right? But if we were to go outside and say, would you approve or would you support an impact fee that would pay for new schools, or at least subsidize new schools, that would reduce your property taxes? 10 out of 10 property taxpayers would agree, without a shadow of a doubt. So I'm truly grateful that we have the partnership at the city with West Ada, and I cannot wait for these discussions in the future, because this is what the citizens of Meridian, and I would even encompass other municipalities in the Treasure Valley, are waiting for.
Any additional comments, discussion, dialogue, motions?
Mr. Mayor.
Councilman Bort.
So how does that happen? I mean, if we were to want to develop that model and tell that story of what impact fee scenarios could show in anticipation of the next session, is that, who leads that? Is that, my guess is West Ada leads it, and we support any way possible. I understand how cities would facilitate the collection of the impact fee on behalf of a school district through building permits. It's done in different environments. So that mechanism isn't of concern. It's more the storytelling of the math. So who leads it, how and when?
To be honest, my guess is we have more experience with impact fees. We have a regular impact fee committee. We have a process. We have consultants that we can be able to provide that assistance to the district to help, assuming that their statutes were modeled in the same fashion after our statutes, to help tell a similar story from that standpoint. So I know that we are in the process of updating our own impact fee, and we could talk to the CFO and see if that's something that, because we rely upon outside expertise as well in this process, whether it's with our process now or it's connecting with that group to help make that conversation. But that's how we could move that forward. Well, with that, unless there's another topic, and I don't want to keep people from their evening duties, when we're ready to be done, we'll need a motion to adjourn our meeting, but
Mr. Mayor.
Councilman Borton.
I don't know if it's a future agenda topic, but it is nice, and it might become a standing agenda item to have, maybe it's the monthly West Ada State Champion proclamation, that we'll just have it every time the championships roll in. It's kind of nice. It's fun having the kids here to celebrate, so it seems like it's become more frequent.
Yeah, I kind of wanted to look at some of these school sites and make sure we keep them a little lower so the Meridian ones have a little higher attendance, just to keep those proclamations coming here. Star has the potential to have their own 3 layers, but anyways, we'll bring that up next time there's a bond or boundary adjustment conversation. And I did want to say, I've had the pleasure of working with Trustees back from when we were on a boundary adjustment committee together. That's how we first met, and I don't know if I'm not saying that's how you first got involved, but it probably was a precursor to where you are today. And there's a lot of difficult decisions that occur at all levels within our organizations, whether it's about development, whether it's about decisions impacting families and where people will be identified to where they should go to school. from that standpoint, and growth is impacting all of that, and I know that we all care about that, and we try to be mindful of that. But we see what's ahead of us, and we'll see how the September enrollment comes around and where our community is and what they think is important and how they value their education, post-COVID. But there's many more conversations, and I know that it's our intention to keep hearing from at least Marcy on a regular basis, hopefully twice a year, so we get this information so council can apply it to what they're making decisions. Because as we said, this is a point in time today. We have, council made some decisions last night on 3 different applications, all of some significant size that could have impacted any of these numbers in a much quicker fashion than what your projections are moving forward. So we need to continue to have that engagement and dialogue on a regular basis to see the impacts. So, looking forward to it.
Mr. Mayor.
Trustee.
No, I just wanted to say thank you again for the opportunity to be here, and definitely thank Jonathan and Marcy for your work. That was very helpful, and we look forward to going back and working with you at West Data and kind of refining that. So thank you very much, and thank you for your questions tonight. I think they'll be helpful as we go back and evaluate some things as well. So we just appreciate your time.
Mr. Mayor, before I make
Councilor Hoagland.
the motion to adjourn, I know Councilman Borton, in his usual humility, he forgot to mention that he's a multi-sport champion, where not only ice curling, but fantasy football. So I just wanted to point that out because of that, that is quite an accomplishment. And
He didn't even mention his senior games championship.
senior games, was that the...
Oh, pickleball senior games. Turkey, what was the Turkey Bowl championship?
I like where this is headed.
So with that, Mr. Mayor, I move that we adjourn.
I have a motion and a second to adjourn the meeting. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. The ayes have it, and we are adjourned.